Welcome, everyone, to another episode of season 6 of the Runners Roundtable. It is my Beyond Pace season where I get to talk to people about their favorite running memories. And today I am joined with, oh my gosh, I promise y'all, I will figure out how to say that by the end of the season. Either way, Rebecca Lockhart is with me today, and I'm really excited to have you here. So, we're going to start off the conversation with you introducing yourself to us, letting us know a little bit about your running story. And additionally, I want to know what it means to you to be a radical runner. So it's a three-parter. It's introduce yourself, tell us your running story, and what it means to be a radical runner.
All right. Let's see if I can keep all those questions straight. So, I'm
I
I'm
got
Rebecca
you.
Lockhart. Um, I am a running and strength coach, and I've been running since about 2015. Um, I am a former hater of running. Um, I, back in school, played volleyball, and I have actually done equestrian sports my whole life since I was about 7. So, horseback riding since I was about 7. I chose volleyball in high school because there wasn't a lot of running involved. Like, specifically, that's why I picked volleyball. I was like, we could just do some sprints and I don't have to
What
run for a long
position did
time.
you play?
I was the libero because I'm really short. I'm only
I was say,
five
but you still
two.
have to run around the court. Like you're still
I
moving
know.
fast.
But it was like short sprints, and I always used to say that I was just a short sprint person, which is hilarious now that I like know what I know about physiology because I am not a sprinter at all. Like, um, so yeah, I went from that. Then in college, I kind of fell out of fitness completely. Didn't do anything for years, and when I back in like 2014, I was like, okay, I need to get myself back in shape, start exercising again. I started going to these blacklight Zumba classes actually. It felt like a dance party to me. It was so fun. Right? So
I
fun.
love it.
And I had a coworker who was like a big runner. She was like a Division 1 athlete, and she was harassing me to go for a run with her. And I kept saying, no, I don't run. I hate running. And she was just not like, she was persistent. She did not give up. She was going to get me to run with her. So I finally agreed. I'm like, fine, we'll go for one run after work. And when I hate it, that's it. You never ask me again to do this. So we ran super slow. She tracked, this was like before I had a watch. I didn't know anything about running. She tracked our distance. We talked the whole time. And when we got back to the office after work, she was like, we just ran 3 miles. And I was mind blown. I had never run more than a mile in my entire life. I couldn't believe that I had just like straight ran for 3 miles. And I was absolutely hooked ever since. I was like, well, if I can run 3 miles, like what else can I do? Um, I quickly found distance. My first official race was a 10K, and the next one was a 10 miler. And I just kind of kept moving up from there. It took me a long time to find the marathon. I was very resistant to the marathon for years, which was a good thing, really. I ran my first marathon in 2021. Um, so almost 6 years after I started running is when I ran my first marathon. But a few years after I started running, in 2018, I changed careers. I got my personal training certification and I started training clients in person. So I like to say that strength is my first love.
Mhm.
And then COVID hit in 2020. I took my personal training business online, decided that I really just wanted to go the route of run coach, got certified and started full-time run coaching in 2020. So yeah, that's my come to running story, come to coaching story. So I mean, I'm the epitome of fell in love with running and made it my entire personality, like literally. Yeah. Okay. Third question.
What
What
does it
makes me a
mean?
rep?
Uh-huh.
Yep. Okay. Radical runner. So this is like kind of a new term to me. And by the time this podcast episode gets released, will probably be public. So it's the new name of my coaching company, Run Radical Coaching. And something that's really, really, really important to me is social justice and trying to bring equality to everybody in the world. And I really have been working on trying to find ways to kind of marry the two loves of my life. So my coaching is really focused on social justice initiatives. Being a radical runner means that we make our group runs inclusive. We do the work outside of running in terms of, educating ourselves, sharing things, donating our time and money. And as my team, we do like monthly advocacy challenges and talk about a lot of these things throughout the year.
I love that because there's so much going on in the world, and just existing can be really, really challenging. And I've taken, particularly as of late, I would say since 2020, which I think for a lot of people, 2020 was a pivotal year in many directions. And I remember I used to be that person that would say, just put on some shoes, go out and run, go sign up for a race, just, just go do it. And now I don't really say that anymore because there is a lot of nuance to just put on your shoes and go out for a run, because it works for me because I can do that. I live in a safe neighborhood. I feel safe when I'm outside. I am in a community with a lot of Latin people like me, so I feel very safe when I'm outside, but that's not the case for everybody. I also have a husband who watches, not watches the kids, but he's a dad when I'm not here. And that's not the case for everybody. And it's also with the races, right? It's not everyone can afford to do a race. One, races may not have the finish line set up for people when they finish. So it's so nuanced that I think we're in a time where we really have to question all of those things, and being radical, which is so interesting. I love the word radical because it's like, is it really radical? Or is it just that we're talking about it? Like, is it really radical to say, hey, this space should be more inclusive and welcoming for everyone? And hey, if you have access to something like running, there's a lot of privilege that comes with that access, right? So it's interesting. But again, when I first started running, I wasn't thinking about any of those things. I was just thinking about myself and what I could do. And I can sign up for the races. Like I think, I don't know if it was on the podcast that I had shared it or in a conversation with somebody, that the first year that I was a runner, um, I keep track of all the races. I'm a big spreadsheet lover. I love Excel. I mean, just like we are in a very committed relationship. So I have Excel worksheets for everything. And I have an Excel worksheet dating back to 2012 with all the races I've done. So every single race, my bib numbers, my times, the date, the name, like all of it dating back to 2012. So each year I start a new Excel sheet. And in 2013, which is the first full year of running I had, I did 26 races, right? And at the time, I wasn't really like, I was just like, oh my God, running is awesome. Running's amazing. Now, when I look back, I'm like, how the heck did I afford that? Like that, you're talking about a 5K entry, which in 2012, it might have been like $30, but still, $30 times however much, it adds up. And that's not even including the gear that we buy, the shoes that we buy, the safety items that we buy, the fuel that we buy. So much of it is not accessible for the majority of people. So it's like, it's so interesting now. And I guess that's the question I have for you, right? When you started running, were those things that you thought about?
Oh, absolutely not. In 2015, when I started running, so my background is I call myself a recovered conservative. Um, I was raised in the Pentecostal Christian church. So I was raised very conservatively, and I I've completely deconstructed from religion at this point, but I didn't start that journey until actually around 2015. Um, and I didn't realize like until like recent years, like reflecting back that, running might have been like a subconscious outlet for me going through that. But I certainly did not think about inclusivity, access, privilege. I didn't even know the word privilege in
Mhm.
2015. Like I didn't like I knew the word, but I didn't know what it meant in terms of like my privilege as a white cis woman, like straight woman. And so, yeah, I never thought about that. And I think most runners don't think about it because it is very accessible to, I think, a lot of us, but it's also not accessible to a lot of us. And I think that we have to start recognizing it and talking about it more and using the privilege that we have to create more safe spaces, more inclusivity in the sport, so we can bring more people in because more people is better, right? We want more people in the sport. It's more fun when we have more people, and it's more fun when we have a more diverse group of people. Like it brings different things to the sport.
Absolutely. I mean, especially when you're thinking about mm, most of how we spend our lives, and I'll throw myself under the bus here, right? I work from home. I don't really interact with people. Like I just don't. I work from home and just going to races, and that's part of, and I've waxed poetic about how much I love big races. And it's because of that diversity that I get to see. I see all ages, you see all body types, you see disabilities, you see people that make you be in awe of the human spirit and of what the human body can do. And again, it's because I work from home. My days are spent mostly interacting just with my husband and my kids and doing the podcast. Now I get to interact with you all. But for the most part, those interactions are very limited. And even just thinking of my girls and their school, right? School is the school that they go to. It's very curated. Thinking about something like when you said volleyball, that's why I'm like, what position? Because my daughter plays club volleyball. And I'm like, yay. So there are parents there that I know, but it's still very limited because it's going to be the parents and the families that can afford to play club volleyball. So the running for me is a way of getting that exposure to different stories that I wouldn't have otherwise.
Mm-hmm. And I think
So,
too, it was really eye-opening for me. I'd already kind of started this like journey of like shifting my entire belief system and doing some internal work on myself. And then when I moved to Utah, I think it was very eye-opening. Utah is Utah. It's not a very diverse state. It's a deeply conservative state. And when you show up, there's the running community here is massive. There's group runs all the time, everywhere. But when you go to these group runs, you see a very certain person here. We don't have a lot of diversity. And I know that the diversity exists. It might not be as much as like in a big city, but I know that it exists in this state. So where are the other runners is my question. Like,
mhm.
where are they? And is it because we are not creating safe, inclusive spaces for people? And so that's kind of like my goal on the local side of my business is trying to create more safe, inclusive spaces and bringing more diversity into the running sphere here in Utah.
Which is really hard, right? Because a lot of I think what prevents people from showing up is that sensation of being the only lonely, right? Where it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm the only one that looks this way, or I'm the only one that speaks this way, or I'm the only one that runs this pace, right? So there's so much, like, it's not running is, I think what we're talking about here is just running isn't just running, it's very layered with all the things of how we exist in the world. So, how we exist in the world is also how we exist in the running space. So, kudos to you for asking those questions because again, not everyone's asking those questions, not everyone cares to ask
Mhm.
those questions. Some people are like, I'm in this running for myself, for my PRs, for this, for that, whatever the case is, and they don't really care to expand on that. And that's fine. That's that person's journey, right? Like that is they're on their path and you're on a different path. And it's important to have these conversations because that's where I'd like to believe the sense of safety starts is from
Mhm.
knowing that you won't shy away from calling out maybe the harm that you're seeing and the way that you want to maybe not necessarily correct it, but address it.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. It's a big tenet of what I do at group runs. I am very loud and outspoken about my beliefs, and my stance on things, and people in the Utah running community know that. But next year I am creating a track club actually, in Utah, and it's actually going to be a donation-based track club. So we're going to support Project Rainbow Utah. So for the year of 2026, we're going to be supporting the LGBTQ community here. And it'll be like a $1 donation for people to show up and do a coach-led workout, but very clearly, like in, my intro in the Strava Club, like there's an inclusivity statement. We'll be doing things like I'll be decked out in rainbows probably when I show up so that people know that this is a safe space that they can show up and exist as themselves. Cause like that's really important to me. I think a lot of people show up to these runs and maybe hide pieces of themselves. And I
Mhm.
did for a long time because it's scary, right? Like it's still scary even for me to like put this out there, especially in Utah, because I don't want to alienate the entire running community here,
Right.
and lose, the community that I've found. But at the same time, like my like personal morals won't let me just sit there and be silent about it. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, I would struggle because I'm a annoyingly so I'm a questioner. I mean, and it my kids, they especially my oldest, she gets so frustrated with me because she's like, you always have questions. I'm like, I know, because I just want to understand, like, make it make sense. If this is what it looks like why? And can we
Mhm.
do anything to make it look different? And does anybody want to do it? Like it's okay to ask those questions because a little bit of discomfort is it's with anything, right? That's why we do speed workouts because in that discomfort, that's where we grow. And it's not
Yes.
just running, it's in life in general. So, okay, coming back to our theme of the season, you've got a decade of running. So I know it's a really big ask to ask you to pick one memory that's your favorite, but I'm wondering if there is that memory that you have that you're like, I just absolutely love telling this story. Or if I'm in a pinch at a run club and I have all these new people and I'm trying to get them to buy into running, what's the story I'm going to tell them?
Oh, that is a tough question. There's so many different moments that have been so great. Um, I'd say going back and forth between my half marathon PR experience and my first marathon. Um, I think we're gonna go with the half marathon. It was a big PR. It was the first time that I had like, I guess, really, really tried, like really, really focused in a training cycle to try to hit this PR. And I actually was on track to reach it before COVID. I had a race picked out in May of 2020, which obviously got canceled. And so there was this big delay. Um, and I got really in my head about ever hitting it. Like I was like, well, I'm going to lose fitness now because, all these things happened. We moved. We were in Utah. I was training at elevation suddenly, which is terrible. Like, Lord, I miss oxygen. And I remember the night before the race, I was freaking out. Like I was so nervous and I was like, I shouldn't even go. I don't know if this is gonna happen. Like I was just not confident in the race. And I not only hit the goal during the race, but I smashed the goal by over 5 minutes. Um, the last 3 miles were probably the toughest 3 miles of my entire running career. Like it was just sheer grit to get through those last 3 miles. But I was like just so proud that I had stuck with it and not just like given up on that goal in the midst of COVID and all of the things that happened during COVID, and the fact that I went out there and I knew without a doubt that I had left nothing on that course. Like I had truly given it everything that I had, and that was such a great feeling to know that I gave it everything and surpassed the goal.
There's COVID was such an interesting time period, right? Because I feel like that forced people to connect with running in a very different way since races weren't happening. And, there's a lot of people that run to run, right? They don't need to race, they don't care about races. And then there's a lot of people that they need those races for motivation or for purpose, right? It's like, I am doing these hard workouts because I am doing this race. I'm curious what kept you motivated to run, right? Because you could have gone, they say we're always at crossroads. We're always at a crossroads because during COVID, you could have said, I'm never going to hit that goal. So why bother, continuing to run? Or you could have been, I'm going to continue to run and see what's possible. Or you could have been, I'm going to continue to run and abandon that goal. So what was the mental process for you during that time?
COVID actually is what caused me to run more. um, Before COVID, I was doing like 3 days a week of kind of CrossFit style workouts in the gym, and I was only running like 2 to 3 days a week, and then lifting here and there. This was when I was training in person, so I lived at the gym. I was a total gym rat. I was doing, in hindsight, probably too much, honestly, but
Mhm.
COVID hit and those CrossFit style workouts were gone, and it's not easy to do those workouts by yourself. Those workouts, I really feel like you need like other people around you to be in that like suck pit together.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started running more during COVID, and I think that it kind of motivated me to keep going. And once I started running more, I got excited about like seeing like new weekly mileage numbers hitting, and so I felt like I had this momentum going. Um, and then we moved, and then I had to like acclimate to elevation, and that was like a whole other thing. So there was a little bit of a dip, I think, in motivation during that because it felt like I had lost fitness for a
Yeah.
little while, which sucked. And I think that's why I was so anxious going into the half, because I just didn't feel like I had felt prior. But I've always been a person that is I'm very type A. If it's on the schedule, like for the most part, unless I'm like hurt, I'm gonna do it. So I never really struggled with motivation to run during COVID. I'm more the type of athlete that had to learn when I need to pull back. And that was a much harder lesson for me to learn.
Yeah. Again, I feel like everything's a crossroads and you could have gone one way or another. And the next crossroads that I want to ask you about, because you've mentioned it already twice, right? Race day, you had a lot of anxiety. How did you overcome that, right? Because you went from, which I think is just a beautiful trajectory, from being anxious to being gritty, right? Whereas the anxiety, and I say this because it's happened to me, the anxiety could have completely crippled you and it didn't. So, what, I guess, walk us through emotionally as much as you can remember from that experience of how did you go from being anxious to mentally being like, I'm going to fight for this? Because that's what it is. When you're gritty, you're like, you're going to, your head down, you're gritting your teeth, you're probably like hating life in that moment, but you're getting it done. So, how?
Um, During the whole lead up to the race, the night before, the morning of, driving to the race, getting on the bus and being driven to the start line. Because for those who don't know, in Utah, most of our races are downhill races. They drive you up a mountain and you run back down. I was like literally like nauseous. I was so anxious about this race. I don't think I've ever been that anxious for a race in my life, actually. We got up to the start line and you've got some sitting around to do. But once I like went off from my warm-up jog, I think I started to like settle a little bit. And I just told myself, just go out there and see what happens, be curious, and go from there. So I started the race and things felt really, really good in the first like 8 miles of the race. And I think like once I started and kind of settled into that, I was like, okay, then things started to get hard. Between 8 and 10, and then 10 hit, and you're coming out of a canyon basically. So now you're flat, which feels like a freaking mountain after you run downhill for 10 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And during those last 3 miles, I think my brain just usually in those gritty miles just tries to, I just try to keep myself calm and tell
Mm-hmm.
myself like 1 more mile, or I'll play like games with myself, like make it to that light post and then you can stop. And then I make it to the light post. I'm like, oh no, you're fine. You can make it to the next
Mm-hmm.
tree.
Yep.
And I distinctly remember the moment when I passed the 140 pacer, and the goal was 145. So when I passed the 140 pacer, I was like, oh, holy shit. Like, okay. And that just lit a fire under me. And I was like, we're full sending this until the end. You're going to just empty the tank here and give it everything that you have. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but so rewarding to be able to do it. And the fact that like I didn't believe that I could at the beginning, and then I surpassed it by so much was such a lesson in like belief in myself and confidence
Mm-hmm.
building for myself, and being like, don't sell yourself short at the next race because you're capable of like far more than you think that you are.
Yeah, and that's the mental side of things is so huge when it comes to running because your body was obviously capable of doing it. It did it. Your body did it. But had your mind gone in a different direction, even if your body can do it, the mind is going to dictate whether it gets done or not. Right. So I'm curious for you after this experience and thinking back of this, that mental journey that you went, how would you say you've changed when it comes to your approach to running, training, and racing?
I think I go into training and racing being more curious than anything. Like I try to go in with this mindset of I wonder what I could do today instead of
Mm.
I have to do this. Because I think a lot of runners go into, and I definitely did this early in my running career, you go into a race or a training session and you see a pace range and you're like, oh, my coach wrote 8 to 8:15 minute mile. And most runners see 8, just as a side note.
Yeah.
Most of you see 8 and you're like, I have to hit 8. And you go into it saying, I have to. And I think going into a session or a race saying, I wonder what my body is capable of today in this moment can really like be a powerful mindset shift. I also started relying far less on my watch and far more on my feeling of effort, which has been immensely helpful, both in just like mentally, like with
Mm-hmm.
running, but also like honestly, like with pacing. Like I'm much better at pacing myself when I stop paying attention to my watch and actually know like how my body is feeling and where to go from there. That's how I ran my last half marathon, which was my first race back post pretty bad injury. And I think I looked at my watch 3 times during the entire race.
Yeah. Because again, your watch is a tool, but it can it can impact your minds because if you're feeling good, right? Like in your brain, you're saying, I'm feeling good. This is feeling strong. But then you look at your watch and it's slower than you expected. You're going to start to spiral and be like, oh no, then maybe I'm feeling good because I'm not trying hard enough, or whatever the case is. Just like if you look at your watch and you're going faster than what you think, all of a sudden, this whole like, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling strong, you're going to start to pull back on the pace because you're like, wait, I can't sustain it. And it's like, but you were okay. So the mental side of the thing, the mental side of running is huge. And it's just such a big impact that I always wish we would spend more time talking about that, because your minds, and what I say is, right, your minds, it's you're either, that's the space where you're either going to be your biggest cheerleader or your biggest critic. It's one or the other. It's never, you're never in there just neutral. It's always, there's always like some kind of judgment or opinion being made. And I just find that it's like, as a coach, how do you talk to your athletes about embracing a more curious mindset?
Yeah, I think that you have to get yourself to buy into the fact that the mental is part of the training. Like I really think you have to truly buy into that as an athlete and practice it. Like you
Mm-hmm.
have to practice it. I like to really use like big long run like sessions with a lot of like speed work in them as like kind of mock races.
Mm-hmm.
Where I will prep my athletes. I'll put it in my notes, or, if we're on a call and talking about the workout, I'm telling them, like, let's work on mental, or I'm telling them, like, I want you to do this workout without like looking at your watch, turn it around, cover it up, whatever you have to do, put tape over it, like, um, so that you kind of practice like really feeling like how your body is feeling, and you don't have that other little voice that's doing all the things that you just mentioned, and you can like really feel it out. And I also challenge my athletes too to do things that scare them a little bit. Like my best example is usually like my marathoners. I'm like, hey, let's go race a 5K, and they're like, oh no, I don't want to do that, that sounds horrible.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good mental exercise, especially at the shorter distances, actually, because it's a shorter amount of time. It's just like anything with running, right? Like we don't go straight from zero to marathon. And so I think practicing like some of these mental things at the shorter distances can help prep you better for the longer distances when you have to be mentally strong for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours out on a course.
Yeah, it's all the laying pieces of the foundation, right? Which is why your training is so important, because that's where you do get to practice, yes, the practical things of, how to fuel, what to wear, things like that. But it's also where you get to practice the mental tools that are going to allow you to be resilient when you're running, because there is going to be a point in time where the race is going to feel hard, and it's either going to feel hard because it's challenging, or it's going to feel hard because you're just over it, right? Like I feel like that's usually, it's either like this is really hard because oh my god, I still have 10 more miles to go, or it's really hard because it just feels really overwhelming that there's still 10 miles to go, or whatever the case is. So the mind is really important. And I love that your memory is that, because even if it's a PR race, it's never just about the number, right? It's never that like, oh, I hit that number. It's more of like, I can't believe I hit that number, knowing how I started, right? Like knowing the anxiety that I had leading up to the race, that I was able to accomplish that. That's where the true, like, that's what you're going to remember. And it's not to say that you're not going to remember the time, maybe you will, but you're going to remember that, oh, I had that race where I had to get really gritty, or I had that race where I didn't think it was possible. And then it was possible, and it was beyond what I thought was possible. Those are the shifts. That's what's going to change you. And that's also, in my opinion, what's going to keep you showing up to running, because now you're going to be even more curious as to what else can you do, and how else
Mhm.
can my mind support me to do those things. So it's a win-win regardless of pace.
Yeah, absolutely. It comes back full circle to like my beginning running story, right? Like I couldn't believe that I ran 3 miles, and then the curiosity piece was like, oh, what else can I do? And so I think you just keep stacking those bricks and building that curiosity, and that's how you stay in the sport for life.
Absolutely. Okay, I have a series of questions for you. The first one is, if you could go back in time to speak to your younger runner self, what would you say?
Oh, I would say to eat more food. Oh, girl, eat more food, please. Yeah, fuel more. When I started running, I was very much like I wanted to lose weight phase of life, and it took me a long time to figure out how to transition out of that. Um, Lost my period for 2 years. Like it was not good. So I worked really hard to get that back. I wish I could go back and tell her to like just eat more food. You're gonna perform so much better if you just eat more food.
Yeah. All right. If you could share some hopes for your future runner self, what would they be?
Oh man, coming off of over 2 years of being injured, I have so many hopes and dreams. I hope that 2026 is a healthy year of running for me, that I rebuild smartly. Hopes and dreams are to do a fall marathon without any injuries.
I love that. How do you celebrate yourself as a runner?
Oh, good question. I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I celebrate a lot internally. Like I get a lot of like just internal like satisfaction and fulfillment through running and doing hard things. And um, so I think a lot of it for me is like very internal celebrations.
Yeah, that question is becoming my favorite question of the season because it's making everyone kind of pause and be like, wait, do I celebrate myself? And if I do, how do I do that? And I think I came up with that question because it's hopefully a reminder for all of us that the running that we're doing, it is worthy of being celebrated, right? Because it's not just, and we hear it all the time, right? It's just 3 miles or it's just 30 minutes. And it's like, but it's not, right? Do you know all the things that need to happen in your life so that you have that pocket of time to do that? And just all of it. Going back to what we were saying earlier in this conversation, all the privileges that you need to have in order to have the ability to do that. And it should be celebrated because we are making a choice to move our bodies when a lot of people maybe have the same set of privileges and are choosing not to, right?
Mhm.
So, okay, two more questions. First one is, where do we find you and how do we best connect with you?
Okay, you can find me on Instagram. Um, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the handle is going to be Run Radical Coaching at the point in time when this podcast goes live. If not, Stephanie will put my actual handle in the show notes for you. And then the website will be runradicalcoaching.com. So you can follow me on Instagram and visit my website if you're interested in learning more about coaching and doing lots of great advocacy work with me, or you just want a cool liberal running friend. I want more liberal running friends, so come find me and hang out.
I love that. Okay, final question is, what are your final words for us?
Mm. Love being put on the spot. I think my final words are don't ever take running for granted. Um, because I did for a long time and then I got injured. And like we were talking about with the privilege, like some people don't have the privilege, the means to be able to do this. Some people are injured and sidelined for a long time and can't do this. So never ever take for granted that you are able to lace up your running shoes and go out the door for a run.
I love that. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me, for sharing your wisdom, your experience, and your stories with us. Everyone, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.